Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be talking about the upcoming Mars and Saturn square. So how I worked recently with the energies, because we've got quite a complexity on the sky going on. So I tried to break down this with individual components. So I made a video about the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. I made a video about the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. And now I'm making a video about Mars and Saturn square as well. And even this is the way how I work with the full moon as well, because the full moon actually illuminates that. So I made a video about the full moon more on the mundane level. And shortly I will be posting one just more on the personal level as well. So this is very rare where we've got such a constellation going in the sky. And I felt like it was better for everyone to break it down on individual components. And one of the reasons is because some of you will resonate, for example, with the Mars Saturn square a little bit more, and some of you might be more resonant with the Jupiter and Mars conjunction. And the reason being is because it highly depends on your natal chart, whether a planet has got the upper hand. For example, if Saturn is extremely strong in your natal chart, then probably Saturn will be talking to you in these videos a little bit more rather than Mars, and so on. So, and as usual, this will be broken down for the 12 signs. So if you want to join my YouTube membership program, then you can get extra 10 videos a month where I'll break down certain constellations. I give you a weekly forecast, a weekly energy patterns for the 12 signs as well. So go and check it out. Let's get started with this very interesting Mars and Saturn cycle. We're going to start with Adam and Eve pretty much. So we've got something called the synodic cycle. And the synodic cycle is from one conjunction to another. So we had the Saturn-Mars conjunction that took place on the 10th of April 2024. And that would be a period when we are planting the seeds. And the next conjunction is going to be happening in 2026, April 19th. That's going to be on 7 degree of Aries, by the way. So between this couple of year window, we're going to have four major aspects that are forming between those two planets. One is a conjunction, of course, followed by a square, an opening square. Then we've got an opposition, and then we've got a closing square happening. So this is what the synodic cycle is about. It is highly important that you check out what was going on with you and in the world once the conjunction took place, because that is talking to you about the planting the seeds element. So the conjunction happened on 14 degree of Pisces, 2024, April 10th. And if you've got a personal planet there, then on the 14 degree of Pisces, then it means that that planet is highly active for you for 2 years. So it's not just like a couple of weeks of transit. It's actually a 2 year window. So in my case, for example, I've got Mars in the sign of Pisces on 15 degree. So basically, Mars is going to be very active until 2026, April 19th. And therefore, you would need to be looking at what the planet rules in the natal chart and where the planet locates. So in my case, this is in the first house. And Mars also rules my second house and the ninth house as well at the same time. By the way, I practice tropical astrology. So this interpretation is going to be based on that. Just to let you know, because sometimes I tend to be getting this question, what astrology I practice. Okay, so we've got this synodic cycle going on. What you're going to be looking for, first of all, what sign do they occur? What house do they fall into? And does it trigger any natal point in your chart, especially by conjunction, oppositions, and squares? What type of orb would I give? Probably I would go with a 3-degree orb. The closer the aspect, the more you are going to be feeling this. Often you will see that more planet is getting triggered in your natal chart. Focus on the one that is the tightest, because that's going to be quite a big focus for you. Now, this is a first quarter moon phase. So basically, we've got 8 phases, 4 waxing and 4 waning. But I highly recommend paying attention to especially the active moon phases. So those are the first quarter, the full moon, and the last quarter moon phase. So the first quarter is very much about a challenge, something that needs to be modified, needs to be rebuilt, kind of like a crisis situation that is happening in our life. And this square is going to be happening uh, on 19 degree of Pisces to 17 degree of Pisces to 17 degree of Gemini. So if you've got any point in that particular chart of yours around those degrees, then also this video is highly important for you. Okay, so this would be one part. Now, there is something extremely unique about the Saturn-Mars elements, because they tend to be meeting every 30 years, for example, in the sign of Cancer. And we consider that as the beginning of the cycle. And it's very interesting because Cancer is the fall position of Mars and the detriment position of Saturn. So from a bigger cycle point of view, this is something that started in 2004, May 25th, on 11 degree of Cancer. And of course, as I said, it's going to last until about 2034. So that would be a bigger cycle. And then we've got these individual conjunctions that are the smaller cycles of this bigger phase. And it's good to do that. You always look at it from the Cancerian point of view. So, for example, the upcoming or the previous conjunction happened 9 sign away from Cancer. So that would be showing that there will be international matters, or there are going to be something to do with laws and legislation and education system that might be changing in a Saturn or Mars way. Now, looking back a little bit in history, for example, one of the cycles started on 31st of March 2020, and that was on 0 degree of Aquarius. Of course, that was highly important because we had the Saturn and the Jupiter conjunction happening on 0 degree of Aquarius as well. But I don't want to talk about that particular cycle because we are here to analyze the current one. But what I would have liked to teach you with that in order for you to understand which planet has got a little bit of an upper hand over the other, in that case, the Saturn-Mars conjunction, which took place on 0 degree of Aquarius, Saturn was the stronger planet. Saturn had the upper hand. And how it could feel like is because Saturn is a social planet, often it can feel like that the society wins over individual needs in that particular constellation. And this time around, by the way, Mars has got more of a strength. So Mars has got the upper hand over Saturn. One of the reasons is because Mars has got directional strength. So actually, this is a direct Mars, while Saturn is a retrograde. And also, Mars is kind of like ruling Saturn by triplicity, because Mars does quite well in water signs in the initial phase. And thirdly, Mars is actually co-witnessed by Jupiter as well. So Jupiter is giving a lot more strength to Mars. So clearly here, the individual needs are somehow forced upon the society. And Mars is about pushing forward while Saturn is trying to put limitations on something But because Mars is quite talkative and yappy in a way, it's kind of like I'm not going to take it that someone is trying to restrict me in certain ways. So I'm going to go on the street. I'm going to be forcing alliances with others. I'm not going to allow anyone to bully me. So I hope that makes sense how this works out. And when you are looking at the four phases, so you have to be looking at all the four phases at the same time to see who is going to be having upper strength later on. So of course, Mars is in the sign of Gemini, so it's going to move forward. This is going to be a longer square, by the way, because Mars is going to go retrograde in the sign of Leo. And therefore, the opposition, which would be happening if we looked at the natural movement in the sign of Virgo, it's pretty much delayed because Saturn is actually moving on and Mars will need a bit of time to kind of catch up to Saturn. So the opposition, by the way, is going to be happening on 1 degree of Libra to 1 degree of Aries. And that's happening on 9th of August 2025. Now, that's going to be highly interesting because it's triggering the Saturn and Neptune conjunction as well. But I'm going to be making a video about that pretty soon because we're going to start preparing for 2025 together. But here's also Mars is going to have a little bit of an upper hand, by the way, just because Mars is going to be direct while Saturn is going to be retrograde, and Saturn is in fall and Mars is in detriment. So it looks like it's going to be quite a tension in 2025, but later about that. And then we're going to have the third quarter square. And obviously that is taking place once Mars is going to be reaching the sign of um, Sagittarius. That's when the last square is going to be happening. And that is happening in December 2025. So I hope this makes sense. Now, let's move a little bit further with this. So what is actually, one other interesting thing is that when you are looking at the Saturn-Mars conjunctions, they always happen 22 to 27 degree further from the previous one. So, for example, we had a conjunction 2022 April, that was on 22 degree of Aquarius. Then 24, it's 14 degree of Pisces. Then 26, we've got a 7 degree of Aquarius. And then 28, it's 2 degree of Taurus. Sometimes you're going to see that there will be a conjunction in the same sign actually twice, just because of that 23 to 27 degree separation from the previous conjunction points. Usually those are quite pivotal moments. And the very last time we had this was between 2020 to 2024, because we had one in 0 degree of Aquarius, and then we had one on 22 degree of Aquarius as well. So just some interesting facts about the Saturn-Mars cycle. Okay, so Mars-Saturn cycle takes place always in the next sign, 22 to 27 degree from the previous point. Okay, so one of the issues we are having with Saturn and Mars from a traditional point of view, that both of them are undesirable. Both of them are malefic planets. And if we go with that concept, then this is really talking to us about that things are happening in the world, which is going to be leaving people a little bit feel bitter. And it can come with loads of worries. So a Saturn Mars cycle is always about attacking a certain type of frame. Attack against, for example, a politician, a political decision, for example. It's kind of like, because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, this could talk to us about that I demand someone stepping down, for example, because Pisces is the sign of endings. But also it could talk to you about how much of an effort you put into something to achieve a certain type of status. And because this is one of the positive manifestation of this cycle, you need to be going back to 2020, what you can, sorry, 2024, April, what you initiated there, and then now making certain type of adjustments around it, how I can make it better. Another negative manifestation of this is feeling depressed. So again, you start with the Piscean cusp in your chart. Let's say it's the first house. Do you have the tendency to feel depressed? And then now this Saturn and Mars square is going to be happening in your fourth and first house. So what does make me feel uncomfortable in my own skin? And maybe we need to be doing a little bit of a soul searching. This cycle could talk to you about anger with the boss or authority figures, being angry with politicians and political decisions made. So it's very possible that we are fighting with the government. We are fighting against our own reality. We are fighting against some types of operations that we feel like this is not the right course of action. But in another positive way, Saturn Mars is the long distance runner. So the endurance sport is something that we can actually consider, especially if this initial conjunction happened in your first or the sixth house, for example, which is very much about the body. Mars Saturn cycles are also about defense mechanism. So what do I do to kind of protect myself, to protect my own frame? So basically protecting your individuality. Are you more of a silent person because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces and it's kind of like it feels like I have to cut my or bite my tongue? Or are you going to be that kind of louder version, Mars in the sign of Gemini, which is going to try to speak up and defend themselves using words? So this could be verbal abuse, for example, and so on. And often we feel that the louder we are, the more we hurt, which is not always the case. And surely with Mars and Jupiter conjunction, that loudness is going to be there. By the way, Saturn Mars cycle could talk to you about dental operations as well, dental problems, for example. So if you experience some dentistry issues back in April, then this might be coming back. A friend of mine, actually, she had major issues happening with her teeth back in April around her birthday. And now she has got issues again the last couple of days. And you might want to remember that even though this square is going to be happening, just basically strongly felt between the 17th to the 22nd of August, but the exact square is happening on the 16th or 17th of August, depending on where you are. But Mars tends to be activating things slightly bit earlier. Saturn Mars cycle could talk to you about power cuts as well. So we might be seeing that in the world, uh, uh, getting cut off somehow from social media. So I can imagine someone is going to get blocked from social media. And it can feel like that you have no right to speak about something that is, in a way, close to your heart. It could talk to us about lack of energy supplies. For example, obviously, Saturn represents the lack of something, and Mars is the planet of energy. So it can feel like that I don't have strength to carry on anymore. I don't have the strength to initiate any type of conversations with others. I don't have the strength to study. I don't have the strength to stand up for myself. But Mars has got the upper hand, as I mentioned it at the beginning of the video. So, which means that we can overcome this lack of vitality and probably we're going to be able to attack. It can unfortunately represent some physical attack on authority figures as well. So this really looks to me that there is going to be another assassination attempt against one of the world leaders. Most likely the authority uh, figure's reputation is going to get questioned as well. It could really talk to us about heated boardroom battles which might not be visible to us because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, but there will be news about it. There will be news leakage happening. So, and also it could talk to us about end of agreements as well with Saturn and Mars. So we agreed on something and then we go against it. We do it in a completely different way. It's kind of like a little bit of a contractual agreement that is coming to an end. Another positive way how it could work is that we are putting energy into establishing our own reputation. This is a go-getter combo. This is about determination. This is about wanting to achieve something. This is about building a solid life for ourselves. So rather than getting into these petty fights with others and screaming at each other from one room, from the end of the room to the other end, I would recommend just focusing on your own business opportunities and reputation as well. Uh, Often the Saturn Mars cycles are, as I said, lack of vitality, often because of mental stress, especially in the sign of Gemini and Pisces. But also Saturn Mars in a positive way. This is the superhuman efforts. So this could really about trying to unite, for example, local community to save something or to save someone. We might be able to see that in a positive way. Also, this could talk to us about enforcing certain type of law. Now, this is something I'm going to be talking about quite a lot because this is something that is coming up with this, but I'm going to come back on to that. It could also talk to us about the police stripping things bare. It could talk to us about, unfortunately, fire too, or attack with fire. So this is kind of like a little bit of a gunshot. But the fire also comes into the picture because Mars is actually scorching the earth. So it could really talk to us about heat waves. Saturn is a dry planet and Mars is a hot planet. So extreme heat that might be coming up. And of course, that could startle, for example, a wild fire as well. So we need to be expecting certain type of severe weather issues with this. Another positive way you can work with this square is to start a strict routine. By the way, this represents the Botox industry as well, which is very much about freezing the muscles in the face. And Mars is the muscle, and Saturn is the freezing element. This could talk to us about boxing. And I must say that it's very interesting that recently a boxer kind of stepped out of the ring due to the fact that she had to be fighting a biological male. So this topic is going to pop up in the next couple of weeks, quite a lot, I would say. This is also Saturn with Mars is about the toxic masculinity, the toxic masculine society. It feels like we have to be suppressing our anger, and I don't want to be suppressing I don't want to be suppressing my anger anymore. Saturn Mars cycle is quite suicidal as well, by the way. So, especially with Saturn being in the sign of Pisces, where it sometimes feel like that I cannot carry on anymore and I have to give up. Um, so violence at the members of society. It could talk to us about the paralysis of the muscle. So it can feel like that, you know what, I have no other option but, and I'm gonna go ahead with it. Saturn Mars cycle also talks about the manual labor. So we might be seeing that, for example, people working at factories and um, any type of manual labor related people are gonna go on a strike, demanding, for example, pay rise. So it looks to me that maybe there will be a moment when a production is gonna stop in one of these bigger companies, trying to force them to give them more money because their survival needs are somehow at risk. They feel like that they don't get the reward what they deserve.
Also, this could talk to us about a mining accident as well. Saturn-Mars cycle often brings up the mining topics. But Saturn is testing your strength here, especially your mental strength. So it looks like that you're going to have to build a stronger mind. And for example, we can be doing that by being on top of the game, by reading or gathering all the necessary informations rather than making a hectic decision. And lastly, Saturn Mars cycles could talk to us about imprisonment as well, especially if someone got imprisoned back in 2024 um, April. Now, it's good to be going back to 2024 March and then to look at what was going down in the world. Because this is one of the ways how you are going to be able to make certain type of predictions for yourself as well. Now, we had a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck Taiwan. So probably we're going to see a very strong earthquake, unfortunately, coming up in the world. And that happened on 3rd of April, by the way, and 9 people died and only nearly 1,000 people injured. And this was one of the biggest earthquake in 25 years, and of course damaged buildings and even triggered tsunami warnings across the island nation as well, such as in China, Japan, and the Philippines. So we might be experiencing some bigger earthquakes in that area again. Now, Dominica struck down a colonial era law banning consensual same-sex sexual activities in April. It wasn't only Dominica, by the way. Um, it was also Germany who passed a new law that will allow people over 18 to self-identify their legal gender. Sweden also made it easier for young people to change their legal gender as well. And and there was another country um, who who did this. Just let me look up my notes because I completely forgot about it now. Oh, it was Iraq who passed a law making same-sex marriage or a relationship a crime. So interesting, right? Because we had quite a lot of these activations. The other big topic that came up back in April, and that was abortion. So it feels like this is going to be also coming back to us. For example, Poland's new government agreed to start drafting laws to lift its near total ban of abortion. That was one of the country that came up with this. And there was another one who also um, um, did this, and that was Italy. So Italy passed a bill that would allow anti-abortion activists to enter abortion clinics. So that was also extremely interesting to me. And obviously, Mars is the planet of killing, and Saturn is putting restriction on killing something. So this might become a topic as well. Iran, for example, sentenced a popular activist rapper to death for singing about a Masha Amini protest. So that's also a big topic, I feel like. And then there was this elderly Swiss women sued the government for not doing enough to fight climate change. And actually, she won. And as I said, the Saturn Mars cycles are about climate change as well. So, by the way, it was 9 years ago when it pretty much kicked off, 2016, and there was this group of Swiss women around age 64, and they were fighting for their fundamental right to life and health in the face of this climate crisis. Fundamental, Saturn, right to live, Mars. So, and then the group included more than 2,000 women, and they sued the Swiss government at Europe's highest human rights court for failing to act on reducing carbon emissions. And they managed to win on 9th of April, so close to that Saturn and Mars conjunction. So it's unbelievable. Also, we had this Australian former political advisor who said she was raped by a male colleague in parliament, and she got justice out of that as well. Or we had the British anchor refuse to use a non-binary guest pronoun, saying it's grammatically incorrect. And this is a big topic now, right? With the Olympic Games, there was this situation where I think it was a football player who refused to wear an LGBTQ badge, and he got quite a massive attack. You know, we are not going to be forming opinions about these type of things. Um, yeah, but this is the limitation of our freedom. And that's exactly what that Mars-Jupiter conjunction talks about, that I want to speak about why someone is trying to limit my freedom. And the Chinese president met with the former Taiwan president, and they kind of talked about a family reunion. So certain type of peace talks happened there. So these are some of the biggest stories. So I think what this Saturn and Mars is going to bring us, a lot of gender, abortion, and marriage related topics. Guys, I think this is what pretty much I wanted to share with you today. To summarize on that is that sometimes we get extremely frustrated when someone is trying to inhibit us. We've got our own desires and needs. And when someone is trying to stop us from that, then it feels like that you cannot be yourself. This is the reason why people might become a little bit more hot-headed and they want to be expressing themselves. And this might be the reason why we have got major demonstrations going on. But also, this is telling you to pursue your goals. And sometimes what happens is then the more you push something forward, the more resistance you're going to be facing. So it doesn't mean that we need to be walking away from something. It's more to do with we don't need to reveal everything, what our plans are. Sometimes we need to keep it to our closed, to our chest. Also, Saturn is a father figure as well. So, sometimes the superiors, sometimes authority figures, or a father figure who might be trying to kind of play this dominance game with you. And then it can feel like that they try to shut you up. They try to tell you that you cannot express your opinion, or they are trying to restrict you and then telling you, no, this is not a good idea. Don't go for it because I told you so type of syndrome as well. So you get confused about it. But I also feel like with the Saturn and Mars, when we put enough effort into it, it comes with a lot of winning. So if there is abortion topics and LGBTQ topics and all these type of legislations and so forth, because Mars has got the upper hand, it's very possible to win with this in the next couple of years. Also, this is about Mars who wants to take risk, and then Saturn is telling us to be a little bit more on the cautious side. And sometimes, because Mars is conjuncting Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, there is this fastness around this. We want to make a fast decision. And Saturn is actually maybe telling us that just to cool down a little bit before we do that. So I hope it helps, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.